Okay, this is how to do the honeycomb stitch or the box stitch using a straight loom. This is a stitch that you can't really do on a circle loom, even though there might be other techniques to use on a circle loom that will give you this effect. I don't know yet. So I'm showing you how to do what's called the honeycomb or the box stitch. This is what I was working on that started the idea. I want to make sure, if you look, you can kind of see that it's creating the effect, and it kind of creates it on both sides. I'm using a thin yarn. I'm using 2 strands of it to do it, so it's still kind of very like light and airy, but it also creates like a stretchy kind of fabric. Like I can stretch this out pretty good. So if you're going to do this, for the tutorial, I'm going to use 1 strand just to make it easier to show you what I'm doing, but I would recommend 2 if it's a thin yarn. If it's something that's a little bulkier, you probably can get away with 1 strand. The best way to know if you're using the right amount is to do a test run. Now this is something I'm working on. I don't know what it's going to end up being. It depends on how much this yarn gets me through. So to start this, what you're going to need, I'm going to show you it on the little loom just to make it easier doing the video. But again, you can apply it. I mean, this is, I believe, close to the biggest loom that I have. So I'm doing it on that, and you can see how much I'm actually getting through it. And I'll show you real quick what it kind of looks like when you're working on it. It looks like that. And if you can see, this is the kind of effect you're going to do. But the first thing you have to do, now the things you're going to need is your loom, your hook that came with it, a row counter if you can't remember numbers like me, and obviously your yarn. At the end you will need a crochet hook to take this off, and scissors as usual. So we're going to start with this, and first I want to say that I added, it was a little tricky to do, but I added some pencil grip to this to give me a little cushion. It's really tough to get them on this, at least for the kind of pencil grips that I found, but at least I fought with it. I got it on there, so it gives me a little more cushion to work with. So you're going to cast on using the figure 8 stitch. And I got to cut this strand. Can't cut the strand. Okay. Forgot my scissors. But anyhow, you're going to do your loop. Excuse me. And you're going to do a figure 8 stitch. That's going to be the foundation. That's pretty much what I did down in this part before I did the honeycomb. But you only have to do 1 row. You're just laying the foundation. You cannot do the honeycomb stitch without doing this process first. So you put it on, excuse me, you put it on whatever peg you're going to start, and you're just going to figure 8 it, which means you're just going to go, just make sure this one strand is on the inside. Okay. You're basically going to do a figure 8, which means you're going to kind of go like this, back and forth, keeping an eye on your yarn behind you, obviously. And again, if it's thin yarn, use 2 strands. Okay. And that's all I'm doing is figure 8ing it back and forth like that. I missed a peg. Okay, and you're going to pretty much do it till you get to the ending point over here. And then you got to wrap back through because you got to cast off the stitch. So you got to pretty much follow yourself back up the project. Pretty much whatever way the strands go is how you're going to figure 8 it back. You can kind of just follow your way. As you can see, I'm just following my way back through. And sometimes you'll notice that you make a mistake, so just kind of make it so it matches up to what you already did. And that'll kind of give you an idea of what to follow. Again, make sure your yarn isn't too tight. Like I said, I'm just figure 8ing it back over, and I just have to keep track of which way my yarn went before. And I'm just working my way back up. Until you get back to the beginning. Okay, so it should look like this when you're done, because you're pretty much following the yarn back up. And then grab your hook and knit over. This is what's called laying the foundation down. Now I did this like 8 times on mine just because of the design that I wanted to do. So I mean, if you wanted to, you could do like 2 rows of this and then move on to the box stitch, but you only really need 1 at this point. But that's clearly up to you. And what's good about this is you can kind of play around with it. Again, like I said, you can do the figure 8 stitch more like I did on mine if you want a certain effect, or you can do more of what we're going to be doing in a minute to create a different look. Now for this one project that I did, I actually did 5 times around, basically, so that it would create the effect that I wanted. But you can do different. I mean, you can do what we're going to be doing next in a minute here as many times as you want for your project. There's no, to me, there's no set thing. So we got them all casted or knitted over, and now just kind of push them down so they're the base for you. And now comes how you do the actual effect that we did on there. You're going to basically create U's on one side. So if you were to look at this like this, in a little bit you're going to see like U's, either upside down U's or right side down, or right side U's. That's the best way to describe it. Now when you wrap it, you know, you're taking the strand, you're going to follow it. Now this is what's tricky. You go around that peg, over to this peg, on this side, sorry, and you're going to go, I'm doing it right? Let me see. Yeah, that's what oh goodness, one of those days. Okay, so it's, you go around that peg, around this peg, around, if you can see what I'm doing here. Basically, you're wrapping it in a way that you are creating a gap with some of them. And you will mess up. Believe me, I messed up a couple times. And then you're back to the beginning. So this is what it should look like now. Again, I'll hold it this way so you can see. What we did is we kind of went this way and back and forth, and there's an opening. If you look, there's some that have no yarn in between. Okay, like no yarns in between those things. No yarn is between some of these. So I'm going to cast this over. Or knit this over, sorry. Now this is where you have to decide how many times you want to go back and forth to create your effect. Because if you do, we'll say 5 times going back and forth this time, and I count going across once as a row, back the other way as a row, back this way as a row, just in case people are wondering. So when I say 5, it's just, that's how I did it. You have to decide how many you want to do, and because whatever number you choose, if you want that same effect, you need to do that same amount when we go the other way. So I'm going to just do a couple rows of this again, because again, this is just a tutorial. You'll decide how many times you want to do it. Okay, and I'll show you the way you cast this off. Okay. And push them down because it makes it easier when you're rewrapping. And you're going to do the same thing. Now you're going to follow your path back because you want to make sure the areas that were left open where there's no yarn remain having no yarn. So that's kind of what helps, is you have your guideline of knowing where you should go. So you're going to take your strand and you're just going to follow your way back over. And you can kind of tell which way you need to go around by the pattern you're doing. If you can see that. So pretty much, sometimes you're going to go on this side and wrap to go here, and then over this way and wrap to go there, this way to wrap to go here. And it gets a rhythm out as you're going. I mean, that's what's kind of cool about it, is you will get very much in like a trance of going back and forth. So again, this is our second row, and as you can see a little better, it's kind of what it's looking like. We still got those U's. That's what it looks like underneath. You'll see it come through. I don't know how many times it takes to actually see it pop through the bottom, but it's a really cool effect. That's what I like about it. I've used it a couple times, kind of forgot about it for a little bit. I did a doll blanket in this where I did, I think, 8 times back and forth before I switched. Because basically what you're going to create after you do as many times as you want back and forth is you're creating a box. You're going to be looking at this and you're almost going to see a lot, like little boxes. And like I said, I'm just knitting this over, making sure to grab all the strand, because this yarn's a little older, so sometimes it frays on me, but I wanted to use a white so that it's a little more easy to see. So you're just knitting this over. Okay. Which is pretty much any way you do it. And then this is how it looks. And again, you're going to push it down. Now I did twice back and forth. Again, do as many times as you want. I'm just showing you the basics, and it's up to you how many times you want to do it. I said it is a cool effect. I mean, practice with it. You might be able to do a variation of this where maybe you alternate how many times you do it throughout the project. as long as you use the same amount per like honeycomb. So that's what it's kind of looking like, as you can see. Now, you've cast it on, it went back and forth as many times as you want. Keep track of that number, and whatever that number is, you're going to do it the opposite way. Now what you're going to do to actually, you're going to close off the box, so to speak. Now you're going to go in the opposite direction. So the spaces like this that have no yarn are now going to have yarn. So instead of going across, we're going to go down. So it blocks off that. So as you can see, it's going to block off the spot that typically, had no yarn. So it's all we're doing now is we're basically creating it to block off the other side, so you cannot see. As you look where I'm going, there's no yarn here, but now there is. And you come over here and you're making it so that it creates that box. You're just going the opposite direction because you want it to close off the box. Again, no yarn is here until you come back through. So once you figure out how many times you want to go back and forth one way, then you're going to turn around and go the opposite way to block off the box and knit over. Now since we did 2 the first time, I'll do 2 so that we can kind of see, and then I'll show you how you can cast this off. But it's a cool stitch. It's for something different. If it's something that you want to make a baby blanket out of, you may have to do panels and sew them together, just because, as you can see with this, it may work for a newborn, but you may want to do 2 of these and then go from there. So just knitting it over like we would normally do. Things aren't cooperating here. Okay. So I'm going to do this one more time because we did 2 the first time. So I'm going to do 2 back the other way before I show you the other part. Now we're not going to totally see the effect because we only went twice back and forth, but you will see it. It's very cool. Again, just keep track of, following your yarn that you did one way. You're going to follow that back until you're ready to switch over and block off the other side. It does get a little tricky when you've already closed off a side. Like, we're going to do one more time following the yarn, but you're going to eventually get a little confused, so really keep track of which way you're going. This isn't the kind of stitch you want to get distracted on by talking to somebody when you're doing it, because you need to be able to re-go back the way you came and do it that way. Because now, once you're creating your boxes, if you look, you're going to be creating these little boxes, which is your effect. And believe me, I messed up a couple times when I was doing the doll blanket because I got distracted. So I went like the wrong way because I thought I was going the same way that I went, and I wasn't. So now we're going to go back the same way we went. So you're going to kind of look and say, okay, we close it off, we're going back over here, and we're closing it off again. And you can kind of tell because there's only one, you can see the one strand or whatever. And then, oops, of course I had to do that. Alright, so just following it back over. Kind of reminds me of like climbing up a ladder in a way when you're winding it. It would help if my yarn cooperated here. So that's all we're doing, is we're just wrapping it back the way we just came. And this is what's important, is you have to remember which way you just came from, because that's how many times you're going to go around again. So you want to make sure that you follow that same path. So now, because you went back the way you came, this side is starting to look where it doesn't have any yarn, kind of thing. As you can see, it's not connected down there. So go ahead and knit this over. Like I said, this was only doing 2 times, so you're not going to see a huge effect. I just wanted to show you, and I'll show you how, when you're done doing the length of the project that you want, how you cast this off. It's pretty simple. You're going to do the figure 8 stitch again to help close this off. Like I said, it's a cool little effect to do on baby blankets, or even doing a wrap or something like this would be good. That's kind of what I'm leaning towards with this project, depending on how much yarn I have. Is it might be a good length for like a nice little summery wrap, but be a different effect than a normal knit one. So go ahead and just try out different things. There are some different kind of stitches I want to learn that are on the round loom that kind of create cool effects too, but I haven't had a chance to really sit down and think them over here. So you push them down, you're going to get ready to like cast off. You've done your project as long as you want, and you're like, okay, I'm done. What do I do now? Alright, so we push them all down to make sure they're out of our way, and you're going to figure 8 it back through everything. This will help kind of, you're just figure 8ing it. Just like we did in the beginning. and then knit over. Now I would probably say maybe do 2 figure eights in the beginning and then 2 at the end, just to kind of, to me, like, totally make sure the project's secure. But again, you can practice it yourself and figure out what you want to do. As you know with my videos, nothing is set in stone. You can alter it any way you want. There's no set way usually of how to do anything. I mean, it is a really cool effect to use on different projects. I mean, you could probably even do a dishcloth in this honeycomb pattern if you wanted. You could probably do a bag almost if you do this bigger, and then you kind of wrap it together and sew it together. Alright, so I'm just, for the sake of argument, I'm going to do one more figure eight back to the beginning, just because I want to make sure that it's secured in. And what your figure eight do, if you look in a minute, I'll show you, is it just basically looking like it's closing off, like no more seeing of the boxes basically. So I'm going to go back through one more time just because I want to make sure it's as secured as I can in the project. So if you do like 2 figure eights in the beginning, then make sure you do 2 rows of figure eight at the end. If you do 1, just do 1. You know, just keep track of that. Write it down on a piece of paper, how many times you did something, unless you have a really good memory. Sometimes I don't, so. Okay. Now, casting it off, you don't really need to do any chains in between. That should make some people happy. At least I didn't. I mean, maybe you're supposed to, but for the effect I had, it didn't seem to really hurt it. You basically get yourself a crochet hook, which I know I have some in my little box here in a minute, and you're basically going to go back and forth. So you're not necessarily working one side and the other, you're actually going to be working back and forth on it. So, and you actually can see the effect a little bit once we take it off. You'll see, I mean, you kind of can see that it's kind of did what we wanted it to do. But it would look cooler if we had kept going, obviously. Okay, so now I need my crochet hook. Now, because I forgot my scissors and I have none in here, when I get to the end, I'm not going to be able to cut it off, but all you're going to do is cut it off like you normally do and loop through. But you're going to kind of start, excuse me, at the opposite end. So if you started over here, which that's why sometimes I like to put a tail so I remember which side I started on. So if you started over here, you're going to start here. You're going to start at the opposite end that you started on. And you're going to pick up a loop, and then pick up a loop. You're going to work your way, almost as if you're doing a figure eight, but you're going to go back and forth. That's at least the way that I do it. So let's stay here. So you're going to pick up a loop. Okay. So we got that loop on there. You're going to come across here and get the second loop. Okay, so it looks like that, and then bring the back over the front. And there's one. Then you're going to kind of work your way. You're going to turn it and grab this one. Excuse me, lips are dry here. Okay. And then do the back over the front. Okay, so it's like that. And then you're going to go grab this one. And again, so you have 2 on there, and do the back over the front. And then back. So you're basically rotating back and forth until you work your way up. And then pulling the back over the top. So that's all we're doing is working it back and forth. So you pick up from like one side, do the back over the front, then you turn it so you can go onto the other side and grab the other one. I'll show you the close-up again. So that's all I'm doing to take it off, is I'm grabbing one from here, one from here, putting it on, so that I have my 2, and take this strand over the top of that one, okay, and then come back over to the other side that I was just on and grab the other one. I'm probably making it sound more complicated than it is, and it's a little tricky to show on the camera right now. It's just basically working your way back and forth. Like I said, I don't have scissors in here. My little ones that I usually keep in this little my little compartment thing, I think my daughter used. Of course, they were her scissors. Okay, so all you're doing is working your way back and forth. So see, that's what it's kind of looking like. I'm working over here, so now I'm going to go to this one, put it on here, do the back over the front, and then go over to the other side and grab the one. Let's cooperate, would be nice. That's a fun stitch to do too. Like I said, so you're just going back and forth. So I'm going over here and I'm grabbing this stitch first. And I'm putting it on. Back over the front, and because I did that way I lost my stitch over here. Yeah. Okay. Back over the front. Now, like I said, I don't have my scissors in here, but if I did, oops, lost my loom. If I did, then I would take some of the strand and I would pull it through. I would basically end it by pulling it through. But I don't have my scissors in here. So I would cut a strand and then I would pull it through and I would make sure there's a knot in there. But that's how you cast it off. And as you can see, it's a little hard to see because it is white. But it does have a stretch to it and you can kind of see a little bit of the effect that we did. It's going to look cooler the more you do the rows back and forth. This was only doing 2 times across. But that's the honeycomb stitch. Like I said, it gets a little stretch. I mean, if you want to, because it is a little tighter here, you can do it the opposite way where you actually use some yarn in between. Because like I said, it does give you a little tighter edge. Even though I think that's how I took it off before. It has a little tighter edge over here. If you don't want that, then start in the opposite way and add some yarn like we would do if we were doing the chains in between, and that would probably help you out too if you didn't want it to be tighter on one side. But I hope that helps. I can't wait to do the next video. I hope you like this one. Make sure to hit the like button if you'd love to and leave comments. I appreciate everybody that takes time to watch my videos, and I hope that everyone enjoys them enough. Suggestions are always welcome. I can't guarantee that I can do everything that you guys would like to see, but I will try my best. It may take a little time, but so if there is something you want seen, but you want it seen quickly, I'm probably not going to be able to show you it. So you might have to do some searching on your own. If it's something that maybe is 2 or 3 months away and you're curious about it, then go ahead, give me a heads up, and I'll see if I can get it done for you. Okay? Thank you. Bye.